Good evening, pro wrestling fans. Good evening to the IWC. The reason why I'm here and the Guardian of Chaos, Big Daddy, is not here is because he's been having some issues with YouTube. He is on temporary hiatus, but he will be back. So in his place, I am honored to be here for you, his fans and subscribers. I am Ramses, and I will be filling in for Big Daddy. He has asked me, he has contacted me. I have flown in from the City of Angels to be here to help the GOC. That's him. So subscribe, share, give us a thumbs up on that like button, and see if you can get us into the algorithm so we can bring back Chaos Corner and this channel on YouTube, The Guardian of Chaos. The Guardian of Chaos on YouTube, the YouTube channel. Thank you all for being here. Much respect. I'd like to acknowledge Austin Nance and the Tribal Queen, who are the moderators here on this channel. Now, this is my first public engagement, my first podcast. It's not a podcast, it's a show, I was told. So bear with me. Give me a chance. Leave a comment. And we're going to get back on pace here on Guardian of Chaos, the YouTube channel. It's story time. Another special edition, a show, story time. So let's relax, grab some coffee, tell your friends, and let's enjoy. I appreciate everyone being here and for putting up with this. Obviously, I have this on for a reason. I do not want to reveal my identity. Again, just know that I am Ramses. Los Angeles, part-time luchador. Thank you. Kids, don't be taken back or scared by this. This is official. This is from Mexico City. I just want to put that in your minds. And let's see if we could have some fun and bring back the channel and what it's meant to be, so YouTube no longer messes with this channel. I am akin to Guardian of Chaos, Midnight Rider. I am Guardian of Chaos, his Midnight Rider. In pro wrestling, true visionaries have always been a rare breed. Throughout history, they were the innovators, the inspired geniuses who changed the landscape of the business and left an indelible mark that continued to reverberate well after they were gone. Vince McMahon's entire national campaign was the product of a far-sighted and bold personality. And such a move required tremendous imagination. Along with his trusted associates, he fostered idea after idea, pushing past bumps in the road with unparalleled ambition. Jim Crockett and Dusty Rhodes, who had his own Midnight Rider, were driven as well, and each had a hand in the skyrocketing growth of Jim Crockett Promotions. They were both visionaries, but Rhodes was the creative mastermind behind the company's success. Starrcade, the Great American Bash, and countless other ideas were the product of his inventive mind. Though it was true he took heat from fans who felt he needed to step aside a bit from his top babyface role, Rhodes was still hugely valuable as JCP expanded nationwide. Dusty was a superstar, and while people in many of Crockett's regular towns had seen him battle Tully Blanchard and Ric Flair countless times, enthusiasts elsewhere were taking in these bouts for the first time live. As a booker, he was also criticized. Feuds were overly protracted, talent was stale, and there was gross overuse of the Dusty finish, with one wrestler apparently winning only for the decision to be reversed later. But the truth be known, Rhodes' talent as a booker had taken JCP out of its safe mid-Atlantic locale and given the company placement on the national stage. If you're just joining us, I am Ramses, and I am here while Big Daddy is on current hiatus, regrouping from his temporary suspension here on his channel, Guardian of Chaos, the YouTube channel. Thank you for being here. I am Big Daddy's Midnight Rider, to keep you updated and informed if you're just tuning into the show. He said it's not a podcast, it's a show. And he hasn't been on here in well over a week since the suspension came down. So again, I will be filling in until further notice. By 1987, Crockett had invested a large sum of money to purchase the UWF. He'd worked a deal with the Florida office and bought a plane to cut down on escalating transportation costs. With the new acquisition cut down on escalating transportation costs and responsibilities came the need for better organization and, more specifically, a solid plan to manage the company's cash and assets. Enormous sums were already being spent to pay stations to air original JCP TV content, which was magnified by the addition of the UWF syndication network. It is conceivable that if Bill Watts owed $50,000 a week because of his TV deals, Crockett was on the hook for double that. And for such a massive syndication venture to make sense, JCP needed to be using those stations to generate income, either through advertising or by promoting live shows, since they weren't running events in the 175 plus markets. Advertising deals had to make up for their TV expenditures. Are you guys still with me? It's me, Ramses. No me joda maricón, muévete culo. Pendejo. Me llamo Ramses. ¿Cómo está usted? Dame una bolsa plástica. Despite its success, Jim Crockett Promotions was still a rather humble organization, whereas the WWF had a staff of over 70. JCP had only 14 at the time, most of whom were the original office personnel from the heyday of Crockett's regional operation. JCP's Charlotte office organized live shows across the country, coordinated talent from both JCP and the UWF, and handled extensive publicity. Then came the responsibilities time to television, syndication at its best, and advertising and keeping the company's books. The latter necessitated a team of experienced employees by itself, and without additional hires, the regular staff was overwhelmed. Crockett improved his TV arrangement, devising a specialized syndication package called the Wrestling Network, made up of all 4 of his programs: NWA Pro, Worldwide Wrestling, UWF Wrestling, and Power Pro Wrestling. The network operated out of the new Dallas office and created an umbrella over the telecasts with the goal of streamlining production and promoting the NWA and UWF together. I hope you have your notebooks out, I was told. So you'd be better off as you come in here, and better off when you leave here. No, you'll be better off walking out of here than when you walked in here. Valuable advice, so you can hold a conversation. Because JCP and the UWF had targeted the same cities prior to the buyout, some markets were receiving programming from both JCP and the JCP-produced UWF. Now, viewers would get a mix of content under the Wrestling Network banner. Taking a big load off of his Charlotte staff, Crockett hired Time Sales International, a company based in Connecticut, to sell advertising. By June 1987, Crockett had lined up stations in 37 of the top 40 markets, and his syndication network blanketed 77% of the country. Smoke? No. Oh, put that in your pipe and smoke it. The WWF, in contrast, had more than 90% coverage. In an interview with Television Radio Age, David Crockett, a JCP vice president and TV commentator for its weekend broadcast on WTBS, affirmed that their promotion was going to retain a legitimate approach to wrestling. We're not going to have any snakes, alligators, or chainsaws. But as some TV station honchos knew, viewers wanted the shenanigans of Hulk Hogan, the colorful gimmicks, the animals, and the over-the-top characters, which always did good business for the WWF. In spite of the trends in wrestling, JCP refused to stray too far into the realm of Vince McMahon when it came to in-ring characters and personalities. It didn't take long for the influence of Dusty Rhodes, Midnight Rider, to alter UWF programming. His pal Magnum TA was installed as commentator alongside Jim Ross. And slowly the focus shifted off actual UWF performers to Crockett mainstays. As a result, the UWF was treated as a secondary outfit, diminishing the importance of its wrestlers, titles, and live events. In Florida, Rhodes tried to maintain a group of wrestlers for local shows in Tampa, Orlando, and Miami, but fans weren't interested. They wanted to see the big guns of JCP, including Dusty himself, and not second stringers. It was the same reason the Central States experiment failed. With house show numbers failing, Rhodes initiated a series of cutbacks, limiting the number of monthly events. Instead of TV tapings every week, they scheduled 2 tapings per week for 26 weeks and cut legendary commentator Gordon Soley's salary in half. Soley had no chance and no choice, so he quit. Obviously, championship wrestling from Florida no longer exists. One of the best shows that we've ever seen. We can agree as a group here in consensus. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think here on the channel. I'm getting used to it. I'm getting used to it. The anticipated Great American Bash Series kicked off in Lakeland, Florida on July 1st, 1987. Ticket prices were lower than the year before, and Crockett played it much safer when it came to renting large venues, essentially avoiding them with the exception of Memorial Stadium in Charlotte and the Orange Bowl in Miami. Yes, it's right behind us, the 72 and 73 banner of said where the Orange Bowl Miami Dolphins played during those years. Yes, a little bit of history here on the channel. Just because I'm a luchador doesn't mean I don't know about American football. Especially here with Big Daddy. He is a 50-year, maybe 53-year Miami Dolphin loyalist. You think they? Yeah, okay, I think they do. He said to focus, get back to the task at hand. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It didn't take long for the influence of Dusty Rhodes to alter UWF programming. His pal, Magnum TA, was installed as a commentator alongside Jim Ross. And I already said that. We already talked about the Great American Bash in Lakeland, Florida on July 1st, 1987. We already talked about moving from these larger venues to a little smaller, with the exception of the Orange Bowl. Yes. Can I use it? My mind's like a lazy Susan. It'll come back around. I know. The Orange Bowl in Miami, Memorial Stadium in Charlotte, Atlanta's Omni Coliseum was the site of the inaugural War Games contest on July 4th. A brutal 5-on-5 battle inside a 2-ring cage. The Four Horsemen, Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, Lex Luger, and J.J. Dillon, were defeated by fan favorites Dusty Rhodes, Nikita Koloff, the Road Warriors, and Paul Ellering. The tour attendance was impressive in Landover, Maryland. 15,000 fans. Chicago, 10,000 fans. Charlotte, 25,000 fans. And Miami, and 16,000 fans. Pretty impressive. And Crockett ran the second War Games at the Orange Bowl and the Bash finale on July 31st. The Horsemen were again toppled when the War Machine, aka Ray Traylor, Big Bubba, the Big Boss Man, a masked substitute for Dillon, gave up. Stay with me here. Stay with me. 21 minutes? We're 21 minutes. 21 minutes. We're going to go as long as it takes. Gracias. On July 11th, 2 major championships changed hands in 2 different cities. Lex Luger, using a chair tossed to him by J.J. Dillon, beat Nikita Koloff inside a cage for the United States belt in Greensboro. Out in Oklahoma City, Steve Williams went over Big Bubba for the UWF heavyweight strap. It was noticeable that UWF grapplers appeared alongside JCP talent in cities throughout the tour. Terry Gordy, Eddie Gilbert, Chris Adams, Rick Steiner, Sting were prominently featured in early to mid-card roles, and they were reliably good. Well, let that marinate. Only a few weeks before, Sting had turned fan favorite and was feuding with Steiner, his ex-tag team partner. Williams, another babyface, was at war with Dick Murdoch and formed a tag team with Terry Gordy to lock horns with Murdoch and Gilbert. The Williams-Gordy tandem gained international fame in the early 90s. As for Ric Flair, the NWA World Champion, he was inching into a rivalry with Manos de Pietros, Hands of Stone, Ronnie Garvin. Crockett was juggling a lot of different issues, but one of his principal responsibilities was signing and protecting his talent. The Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal, were 2 of his most popular attractions and had been approached by both the WWF and the AWA, and retaining their services was a priority, and Crockett locked the wrestlers down with a big money guaranteed contract that would keep them in the company through 1990. Following his purchase of the UWF, he missed the opportunity to land Ted DiBiase, who promptly joined the WWF and made his debut as the $1 Million Man early in 1987. Between June and September, JCP also saw 5 grapplers depart for other organizations. Rick Rude, Terry Gordy, Buddy Roberts, Chris Adams, and Manny Fernandez, along with Michael Hayes, the remaining Freebird. He was the only one left, and he inked a contract and later fashioned a new team with Jimmy Garvin, who to me, no matter what you say, the Freebirds were Terry Gordy, Michael Hayes, and then along with Buddy Jack Roberts. Jimmy Jam Garvin never worked for me. Nothing against Jimmy Jam. He had quite the career. Especially with that whole Precious and Sunshine gig down in World Class Championship Wrestling. But as a Freebird, personally, we didn't like it. Bear with me. I've been wearing this thing all day, all week, all year, for the last 20 years of my life, unless I'm obviously in my own, mi casa, su casa. Crockett and Rhodes returned the NWA brand to Detroit in an unambiguously pro-WWF city on September 25th, 1987. They rented the Joe Louis Arena, a venue McMahon had occupied from 1984 until recently when he'd moved to the Silver Dome. In a promo piece in the Detroit Free Press, the differences between JCP and the WWF were once again front and center. And writer Joe Barrett explained that the NWA-UWF combination was less glitzy and showbiz oriented than the other guys. Promoter Gary Juster was optimistic about the event. He told the newspaper that Detroit fans have been waiting a long time for NWA wrestling. And the night of the program, 8,000 frenzied spectators were present at the arena to see Crockett's best and brightest, and those in attendance were in for a treat. Rhodes booked Flair to lose the NWA World title, but the new champion wasn't... Wait. And those in attendance were in for a treat. Rhodes booked Flair to lose the NWA title. But the new champion wasn't Steve Williams in a unification match, nor was it heir apparent Barry Windham. The new title holder was Ronnie Garvin. I understand. I'll explain it. Yes, it's your show. It's your channel. Well, as your relative, as your Midnight Rider, I almost let the cat out of the bag. I will do whatever it takes. I know, I didn't put it on all the way. I get it. I understand. I am Big Daddy's Midnight Rider, in case you're just tuning in here at almost 30 minutes in on Story Time. On Guardian of Chaos, the YouTube channel for Chaos Corner. The GOC is on a temporary suspension.'s having his issues with YouTube. We're in the middle of appeals. So I've come in from Los Angeles. His luchador friend, confidant, concierge, at least for the last 40 years, 50 plus years. So I have to follow his orders. He said I was the only one he could get because we kind of sound alike. I really don't see that. But I'm honored, I'm humbled to be here. I'm fortunate. I came from, mudslides and fires, and at least it was 80 degrees, and now I'm here, and it's 35 degrees and 32. Okay. And 10 inches of snow. One man, unique, unedited, unscripted, raw dog for you, the fans. He told me to say that. I got to run, can keep from hiding. And I hope we straighten this out. I got one more silver dollar. I'm not gonna let him catch me, no. Not gonna let him catch the guardian of chaos. Do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do. YouTube looking at you. Okay. Okay. He wants me to continue. I'm having fun. It's my first time. This isn't bad. I think I could do this. Listen, I hope you're suspended for more than just a couple of days, a couple of weeks. Okay. I'm not getting paid, right? Of course not. But I'm glad to be here for his fans. And hopefully you'll become my fans because I'm starting my own YouTube channel as well. It'll be Ramses at Luchador. So hold on. We didn't put it up yet. The result was a major surprise and strategically important. Without question, Garvin was inherently tough and carried good fan support. At 42 years of age, he was a battle-tested veteran and had been embroiled in a feud with Flair since July. Their chemistry worked when it came to street fighting and seismic chest chopping, and their battles garnered a lot of attention. But all of Flair's challenges, including Wyndham, Nikita Koloff, Garvin, were not expected to win the belt. That shock of the moment, plus the fact that Flair was finally beaten, carried a lot of excitement. The booking philosophy behind the match, the switch, carried a lot of excitement. It related to the promotion's upcoming Starrcade event, which was historically the biggest night of the year for JCP. Crockett and Rhodes wanted Flair to win a return match and regain the championship at that show, meaning Garvin's reign was destined to last 62 days. The idea, credited by some to Flair himself, was agreed upon by all parties, and the Detroit Switch kicked the plan into motion. Starrcade was a Thanksgiving tradition for JCP, and the 1987 Spectacular marked the company's first foray into the world of pay-per-view, adding to the magnitude of that event. To that juncture, pay-per-view had been dominated by the WWF, and for Crockett to be competitive, he had to cross that bridge. Vince McMahon didn't want to concede anything to his rival, and he went on the offensive to narrow JCP's chances for success. First, he scheduled a competing pay-per-view show for Thanksgiving, naming it Survivor Series. Then he used his leverage as a leader in pro wrestling's pay-per-view field to get cable systems to reject Starrcade entirely, telling executives that if they went ahead and presented the JCP program, they wouldn't get the next WrestleMania. It was a harsh move and severely damaged Crockett's ability to land outlets. In fact, Starrcade was only available for PPV in 300,000 homes, while McMahon offered the Survivor Series to 7 million homes. In the lead up to Starrcade, JCP TV ratings fell dramatically, and house shows in Los Angeles, Atlanta, and Charlotte drew less than 2,000 people. Greensboro on October 25, 1987 drew a trifle better than 3,500. In Dallas, poor advance ticket sales caused Crockett to cancel a program outright on October 15th. Despite a quality roster of athletes, the current matchups weren't sour. My mistake. They were sour. Otherwise, the ratings and the attendance wouldn't have dropped. Hello? McFly, is anybody home? Ronnie Garvin, as the lead babyface and defending champion, had its disadvantages, especially when compared with WWF title holder Hulk Hogan. Although it was a bad time to lose momentum, and the leaders of JCP crossed their fingers in hopes of a triumph on Thanksgiving night, the WWF was just too strong. Built on the premise of teams vying in elimination matches, the Survivor Series was a loaded bill with 50 competitors in 4 bouts. In one of the contests, Randy Savage teamed with Jake Roberts and Jim Duggan, who had returned to the promotion in September. Brutus Beefcake and Ricky Steamboat to beat the Honky Tonk Man, Harley Race, Hercules, Ron Bass, and Danny Davis. Savage, Roberts, and Steamboat were the survivors. Hulk Hogan partnered with Paul Orndorff, Don Morocco, Ken Patera, and Bam Bam Bigelow in the main event, but took the loss against Andre the Giant, the one-man gang, King Kong Bundy, Butch Reed, and Rick Rude. Andre pinned Bigelow to become the sole survivor. Hogan, startlingly, was counted out with 3 quarters into the battle and eliminated. The WWF racked up more than 400,000 in pay-per-view sales and sold out the 20,000 plus seat Richfield Coliseum in Richfield, Ohio, turning the Survivor Series into an undeniable success. Hold on now. You know and I know that you know. You're watching. It gets back to me. It got back to me. To him, I am his Midnight Rider. He'll be back. We're putting in an appeal with YouTube. Just want you to know that. We're in a process right now, but temporarily the GOC, Big Daddy, will be off camera until further notice. Listen, he could be back tomorrow. He could be back Friday. He could be back next week, for all I know, next month. So I'm going to try to fill in. I hope you guys don't mind. He said you were loyal. The channel, he told me, was on a rocket ship from early last summer into 2025. So we're going to try to keep that momentum going. This is just a minor setback. Never give up. Stay mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually fit. If he's for us, and I don't have to tell you this one, he doesn't have to tell me, then no one could be against us. That's why we hang out with like-minded people. The WWF. Let's skip out of that for a second. Let's skip out. Let's go to Chicago. In Chicago, Starrcade was underwhelming. Ric Flair recaptured the NWA World Heavyweight Championship from Garvin, but the hometown favorites, the Road Warriors, were subjected to the infamous Dusty finish in their bout with Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard, disappointing viewers. Dusty Rhodes was victorious in his contest with Lex Luger and won the United States title. The show was balanced to a certain degree and drew 8,000 fans to the UIC pavilion, but it was far from the financial bonanza that Crockett needed. He offered the program to over 40 closed-circuit TV locations and reached in the neighborhood of 20,000 homes via pay-per-view. Neither the fans nor the powers that be were happy with the results, and loyalists back in Greensboro were exceedingly displeased. Starrcade was their event and had been so since 1983. Moving the show to Chicago was an effort to play ball with the WWF. nationally. But Crockett estranged his most faithful fans in the process, and it was a slight that would not be forgotten. The economic reality of Starrcade, high-priced contracts with balloon payments at the end of the fiscal year and expensive television deals was created an untenable environment. And the future of Jim Crockett Promotions was in doubt. Company finances were strained further by exorbitant spending on transportation, jets, and limousines, and the cost of maintaining two offices, one in Charlotte and one in Dallas. With regard to the Universal Wrestling Federation, Crockett had committed millions of dollars to purchase the organization, but over the last 4 months of 1987, he ceased running exclusive house shows and TV tapings under that banner. At Starrcade, Nikita Koloff beat Terry Taylor to unify his World TV title with the latter's UWF television crown. But the World Championship of Steve Williams and the tag belts held by the Sheepherders was effectively retired in December 1987 when JCP completed a full-fledged merger of the two groups. The UWF was no more. I hope you have your notebooks out. I hope you're writing this down. What? What a story. As the year came to close, JCP was treading water, and Rhodes was creating new angles in an attempt to spark attendance. Lex Luger turned babyface and went to war with his Four Horsemen mates. And up-and-comer Sting received a push to match his growing popularity. Over in the WWF, Sting's former partner in the Blade Runners, James Hellwig, was off and running as the Ultimate Warrior and displaying a fierce enthusiasm that struck a chord with fans. His impressive power was exhibited each time he stepped through the ropes, especially as he put away his foes with a gorilla press slam. Talent on the whole was never a problem for Vince McMahon. Newcomers Ted DiBiase, Rick Rude, Bam Bam Bigelow, and the One-Man Gang. They were impact players. And before the end of the year, both Gang and DiBiase were facing off with Hulk Hogan for the WWF Championship. Many old faces were on the circuit, including superstar Billy Graham, Don Morocco, George Steele, and Hillbilly Jim. And the tag team division was robust. Yes, unlike today's tag team divisions in all the companies, it's a joke. Led by the Hart Foundation and Demolition. In the months prior to the Survivor Series, Paul Orndorff became a fan favorite, as did Randy Savage, who entered into a lengthy feud with the Honky Tonk Man over the Intercontinental Belt. Heels were aplenty, and Bobby Heenan created an imposing family, comprised of Andre the Giant, King Kong Bundy, Harley Race, Rick Rude, and the Islanders. The perfect foils for the WWF heroes. Hulk Hogan remained the top banana, and all through his Rockin' Wrestling cartoon was canceled, although in June 1987, it wasn't because his standing as the WWF's central protagonist had diminished. Kids were growing up with Hogan, and the aura of the Hulkster still cast its glow over across North America. Not in Mexico City. Arriba! On August 28, 1987, He was a headline attraction in Houston during promoter Paul Bosch's retirement show at the Sam Houston Coliseum and defeated the one-man gang. Bosch aligned with the WWF after the sale of the UWF, and his retirement event was attended by luminaries from throughout the grappling world. Vince McMahon was joined by Lou Thesz, Gene Kiniski, rival Verne Gagne, and over 12,000 spectators, and paying their respects to Bosch for his exceptional contributions to the sport. The living legend Bruno Sammartino appeared on the undercard and beat Hercules by countout in his second to last pro match. The next night at the Baltimore Arena, he teamed with Hogan to conquer the one-man gang and King Kong Bundy. Bruno then retired from active wrestling, capping a career that began in 1959 and saw him reign as Worldwide Wrestling Federation champion twice for a combined 11 years. After giving up his job as commentator in March 1988, Sammartino became a vocal detractor of modern wrestling and condemned the gimmickry antics of McMahon and the WWF. He wasn't alone. His Pittsburgh neighbor, Johnny Valiant, a former Worldwide Wrestling Federation tag team champion in the 1970s, told the journalists, "I think Vince McMahon must be inspired by Walt Disney these days. Wrestling was on top of the world for WrestleMania 1. Then they started getting guys who were half-baked entertainers instead of wrestlers." Verne Gagne wholeheartedly agreed. "It makes me sick. It makes me want to vomit," he said. "It's too far out." I'm far out? Thanks, Big Daddy. Too tongue-in-cheek, they took down the sport and looked down on the sport. They make a mockery of the whole goddamn thing. The AWA continued to be raked over the coals by the WWF. Co-holder of the AWA World Tag Team Championship, Boris Zukov, left the promotion for McMahon's group mid-reign in late September 1987, and Gagne was forced to re-team Zukov's partner, Soldat Ustinov, with Doug Summers. A short time later, one of the Gagne's most valuable long-term commodities, Nick Bockwinkel, took a position in the WWF as a part-time TV commentator and occasional referee. On November 16, 1987, at the Meadowlands in East Rutherford, New Jersey, Bockwinkel participated in an old-timers battle royal with a handful of old former AWA stars: Edouard Carpentier, Gene Kiniski, Ray Stevens, and the Crusher were also involved and in the finals. Lou Thesz tossed Pat O'Connor over the top rope to score the win. Now, Verne Gagne saw another champion defect to the WWF in 1987, a few months before Zukov. Sherry Martel, a talented grappler from Alabama, who was the current AWA Women's Champion when she walked out, leaving Gagne high and dry. On December 27, 1987, a Minneapolis-trained Medusa Michelli beat Candy Devine to capture the vacant AWA Women's belt in Las Vegas. That same night, Verne Gagne beat Adrian Adonis by disqualification in the finals of a tournament to win the initial AWA International TV title. And the returning Midnight Rockers defeated the original Midnight Express for the AWA World Tag Crowns. On February 4th, 1988, Gagne presented his final offering at the Minneapolis Auditorium, which was scheduled to be demolished, and invited fans to celebrate 55 years at the venue. Only 1,700 people were in attendance for the special event. but they were warmly received. Dick the Bruiser, Leo Nomalini, Hard-Boiled Haggerty, and the other AWA legends were on hand. The real story of that night wasn't the small crowd, but the fact that Gagne was being stripped of his prime facility in the Twin Cities. He couldn't afford the Met Center in Bloomington and was aced out at the St. Paul Civic Center. So in addition to stopping his shows in San Francisco, Salt Lake City, Denver, Milwaukee, Green Bay, and Chicago, Gagne called a halt to regular action in his primary cities of Minneapolis-St. Paul. Historically, a promoter losing the nucleus of his operation was doomsday. But Gagne was resourceful, and a resourceful man, who just signed a new contract with ESPN. But essentially, he was a promoter without a territory, and the AWA was confined to TV tapings in Las Vegas and small shows in small cities in Wisconsin and Minnesota. He still carried the important lineage of a Big Three promotion. But in terms of live events and territorial control, the AWA had become a glorified independent. No revealing of the identity. Big Daddy would not allow me to do this. He wants to wait until the appeal is in full process and he can hear back from YouTube. So I'm going to attempt to just tighten up a little bit here. No offense, guys. The story will come out sooner or later, but I am Big Daddy's Midnight Rider. 51 minutes in. Don't go anywhere. We'll be here for at least an hour. And I hope you tuned in for the entire show. I'm following it, brother. I'm following it, boss man. The ESPN coverage kept him in the ball game. As far as his TV situation went, Gagne was doing pretty well, all things considered. His original syndicator, the New York-based Syndicast Services, severed ties in early 1987, and Gagne hired a veteran radio guy from Minneapolis, Gary Rawn, to help run his television setup. But ultimately, he landed with RJS Marketing Worldwide, which also oversaw the syndication of Pro Wrestling This Week by Joe Pedicino. A great show. I remember it like yesterday. It was presented very well by Pedicino and Bonnie Blackstone. The All-Star Wrestling Network was commonly in the top 15 in national syndication ratings, lagging behind the WWF and JCP. With his circuit practically devoid of major markets, Gagne placed an even greater emphasis on booking his heavyweight and his tag team champions in friendly territories. Very important. Over the first 6 months of 1988, his grapplers appeared in Memphis 18 times, with additional showings in Louisville, Nashville, and Evansville. And to mark Gagne's alliance with Jerry Jarrett, Jerry Lawler beat Curt Hennig on May 9th to capture the AWA World Heavyweight title. The Memphis region was fueled by the influx of AWA workers, and a reliable world champion in the area was booned to ticket sales. Jarrett received a few JCP castoffs as well, Terry Taylor and the Rock and Roll Express among them. But Eddie Gilbert's return was the big news. He attacked Lawler with a fireball on February 22nd, and their subsequent matches drew intense heat. A week before Lawler won the AWA belt, Memphis was besieged by wrestlers from Dallas as part of another talent-sharing deal struck by Jerry Jarrett. Michael Hayes, Chris Adams, Buddy Roberts were on the bill, along with world-class champion Iceman King Parsons, battling Kerry Von Erich in the main event. Parsons won by disqualification, in case you're interested. Linking the CWA and the AWA with World Class was a tactical move, and all three promotions had something to gain. Notably, though, because of the weakened state of Gagne's company, he was a lot more willing to share power in 1988 than he had been in 85 or 86, as demonstrated by putting the AWA belt on Lawler. Jarrett's CWA might have been in the best position of the three organizations. His main city, Memphis, was drawing houses 2 to 5 times larger than Dallas. And unlike World Class and the AWA, Jarrett had retained some semblance of a legitimate territory, including several population centers of over 50,000. His top wrestler was the AWA World Champion, and in March 1988, he gained a national cable outlet on the Financial News Network. Young talent was in abundance in Memphis, as at various times Shawn Michaels, Scott Steiner, and Cactus Jack were in the region. Steiner, the younger brother of JCP upstart Rick Steiner, won the Renegade Rampage tournament in Memphis in June and teamed with Billy Joe Travis to capture the CWA tag team titles. Cactus Jack, a protege of Dominic DeNucci in Pennsylvania, held the CWA Tag Championship with younger partner Gary Young before dropping a loser leave town bout in November. Jeff Jarrett was also making headway as a professional and was exceedingly popular. Oh, slap nuts! Don't laugh like that. I was told by the boss not to laugh like that. I apologize, fans. I am his Midnight Rider. Did I say that already? I was told to say that at least several times throughout the show. It's not a podcast. Okay. From a Dallas perspective, the working agreement with the CWA and AWA was a home run made simpler by Kenny Mantell's positioning as co-owner. The problems between Gagne and Jack Atkinson were well recorded, and the two had nearly run opposition against each other a few years earlier, but Mantell was mending fences and strengthening bonds with associates across the country. He sent out missives to groups of all shapes and sizes and extended his willingness to book world-class wrestlers on independent shows regardless of their location. Independent pro wrestling, the backbone of this industry, of this business, if you will. In the ring, Mantell was also trying to turn things around. He reinitiated the old Freebirds Von Erich feud on December 25th, 1987, and did an injury angle with Fritz Von Erich, which meant Kerry and Kevin wanted revenge on Terry Gordy, Buddy Roberts, and their new partner, the Blackbird, King Parsons. Michael Hayes joined the Von Erichs, and their quests and matches were set up for months. Yes, the Freebirds had split up at this point. Hayes and Gordy and Roberts were going against each other. The Blackbird! Again, I'm not crazy about this like I wasn't crazy about Jimmy Jam Garvin. I'm not crazy about Iceman King Parsons, but I get it. Hayes and Gordy should have never, ever had that feud. We talked about this before the show started, with things that we were going to cover on story time, and the boss agrees with me. So that's why we hang out together, and we're like-minded people. That's why I was flown in here to fill in as a temporary host here on Chaos Corner until we go through with the appeals and we find out what's going on with the status of the channel. On May 8th, 1988, at Texas Stadium, Kerry beat Parsons to capture the World Class World Championship, and Kevin teamed with Bruiser Brody to beat Buddy Roberts and Solomon Grundy. Attendance was upwards of 7,000 people, the largest parade of champions crowd in 2 years. And regular crowds at the Sportatorium were way up from the terrific lows in 1987. Mantell's gains were noteworthy, but the Dallas office had limited financial resources and could only do so much. Additionally, the arrangement Atkinson, aka Fritz, made with Bum Bright ended without the promised success. The October 1988 edition of Penthouse described the hypocrisies, tragedies, and the overall downfall of the well-documented Von Erich family. It was a revealing portrait of pro wrestling's first family that traced the timeline of events between David's death in 1984 and Mike's suicide 3 years later in 1987. Included were all the dark details about the various arrests, the drug abuse, and the injuries suffered by the brothers. And it was an article the senior Atkinson hoped would never see the light of day. We're better known now because we die, Fritz told D Magazine. Unfortunately, there was much sadness yet to come. Tragedy was being felt throughout the wrestling world in 1988. On July 4th, 33-year-old Adrian Adonis was killed in a car accident in eastern Canada. A former AWA and World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Champion, the East-West connection with Jesse the Body Ventura. Adonis was generally underappreciated as a wrestler, and although his weight held him back at times, he was a solid performer on the mat. Pat Kelly and Wildman Dave McKigney also lost their lives in the wreck, and Pat Kelly's twin brother Mike was the sole survivor. 12 days later in Puerto Rico, 42-year-old future Hall of Famer Bruiser Brody was stabbed to death in the locker room of Juan Ramon Lubriel Stadium in Bayamon, Puerto Rico, by Jose Gonzalez, a wrestler known as Invader One, and died the next morning, leaving his wife and young son behind. And I know that all you fans are well familiar with the murder of Bruiser Brody and how it's discussed and looked at even amongst my people. And you know what I'm talking about. An international superstar, Brody was pro wrestling's #1 nonconformist. And after 15 years in the industry, he'd pretty much seen it all. He had brawled with the biggest names in the business, exchanged fisticuffs with fellow wrestlers behind the scenes, and walked away from promotions at the drop of a hat when he felt slighted by the promoters. Insiders knew his stormy disposition all too well, just as his friends knew the depths of his heart and loyalty. Brody was a force of nature and a man some people thought was immortal. Without a doubt, he was one of the most important performers of wrestling's territorial era. Are you going to come on and say something, boss man? Or this is how it is temporarily for now until further notice? This is Big Daddy's Midnight Rider. Thanks for being here. I'm going to try to hold up the traditional slogans and sayings and spirit and soul of Big Daddy as we fight this appeal. So I'm here temporarily, at least as a co-host. The GOC sends his love, sends his respect, and he'll say that to say this, because he tells it like it is. Don't you dare miss it.